If this book exists, you're in the wrong universe. Book 2. The following is an excerpt from Projections into the Void by Dr. Albert Marconi. Somewhere, at this very moment, a teenager is holding in her hands an envelope she has just received from a university. Her eyes are closed, praying passionately to her God that the envelope contains an acceptance letter. This teenager, without realizing it, is making a request of the Almighty that not even the most zealous believer would attempt, for him to reach back and alter the past. By the time the envelope in question landed in our supplicant's hands, it of course already contained what it contained. The acceptance decision had been made days or weeks prior. The document printed and added to the mail soon after. If the prospective student's request was answered by the Lord, and the document transmogrified from a rejection into an acceptance, the faculty would simply dismiss it as a forgery or an error. Their decision would remain unchanged. Therefore, what is really being requested in this prayer is that the entire chain of events leading up to the creation of the document also be altered, including the very thoughts and inclinations of those who made the decision, along with the many factors that influenced them. It is effectively no different from kneeling by one's bedside and praying that the Holocaust be erased from history in its entirety. A noble request, to be sure, and one a merciful God would seemingly be eager to accommodate. But it is not one that any believer I've ever met would be inclined to make or reasonably expect to be granted. Yet, based on what we know about the universe, every appeal to a higher power for intervention is in fact asking for said intervention to occur in a timeline that has already been firmly cemented in reality. We only know of a crisis when a certain domino is poised to fall, after symptoms of the tumor have manifested, after the aircraft's engine has failed, after the employer's business has gone under. Avoiding it requires infinite shattered teacups to be reversed, reassembled, and their contents unspilled. To pray for a son to make it home safely from a war, under the assumption that he'd have been killed or maimed in the absence of such a prayer, is to pray that the circumstances leading to his averted death all be altered retroactively, that his orders take him a little farther away from where the lethal bomb was destined to land, or that the enemy bombardier chooses to execute his duties of the day differently, or not at all. And why not make such a prayer? An omnipotent God would surely not be shackled by something as trivial as our linear perception of time, not when we have observed particles in our own universe that seem to disregard it. But now let us say that the prayers of the believers do in fact affect the outcome of events, and that it is routine for the Lord to rewrite history to accommodate this. How much of your own past has thus been rewritten at the request of total strangers, ones whose interests differ wildly from your own? Our teenager's acceptance to her college of choice means someone else's rejection. The bomb that missed the soldier may have annihilated another platoon instead, or changed the outcome of the war entirely. If you reply that surely an all-knowing God can still see to it that all is well for everyone involved, I would tend to agree. But I would then ask you to imagine what a devil would do with the same power. Monday, August 22nd, 10:01 a.m. Vanilla gumballs. Collected, 7. Me. Amy was shaking me awake. I knew it had to be some kind of terrible emergency to awaken me in the middle of the night like this, and to also perform some kind of sorcery to make it appear to be mid-morning outside. I said, "What time is it? Why didn't anybody wake me up to take watch?" "John fell asleep, but we just got good news. We sold Oksana." "Who?" In my half-awake state, I couldn't think of how "we sold Oksana" could be describing any transaction that wasn't a felony. "It's one of the cursed dolls. We've had it in storage forever. Name is Oksana. She's supposedly possessed by a little murdered girl. Apparently, she got up and walked a few steps in the storage unit, and I posted the clip to the site with a $500 price tag for the doll. We actually got 3 offers and accepted the one who said they could pay cash and get it to us today. They're picking it up in person. They're on their way." I blinked, trying to clear the cobwebs. "Really? This is the first I'm hearing of any of that." "Me too. I didn't remember it. The clip was posted while we were out of it yesterday afternoon. Wait. Stop. So before you went to the theater and broke your glasses, and while you were in a period of lost time, you arranged a deal that, by coincidence, would pay for the glasses you were about to break? Maybe we just got lucky. It happens. Don't make that face. If it's some kind of trap, we just have to risk it. I'm no good to us if I can't see. And did the doll actually walk, or is that, a thing we did to drum up the price? Some fishing line or digital trickery? They agreed to meet out at the storage locker, said Amy, ignoring the question. If they show, we can go right to the glasses place. Let's go. I want to go home and get a shower first, and a change of clothes. The only thing Joey has that fits me is this tiny leather skirt, and if I wear that, you're going to start demanding I dress like that all the time. I fought a brutal 5-second battle against gravity and managed to sit myself up on the sofa. We have to find Sebastian, I think. I squinted, trying to recall why that was so urgent. We will. The faster we get this thing done, the sooner we can... She was interrupted by the sound of thumping on the stairs. John's slippered feet descending at full speed. He sprang into view in the living room, wearing a black kimono. Stop, he shouted. Stop everything. We weren't doing anything. I've got it. I know what's going on. Guys, we've done all of this before. Amy said, We've done it a bunch of times at this point. No, I mean this exact situation. These days, these hours. We've lived them before. Last night, I had a vision, in my sleep. I said, A dream, you mean? No, listen, it makes sense. I was visited by the guy we saw get chopped up in my wall the other day, and then totally forgot about it. He said he was a time traveler. The second chance we asked for, that was us asking him to rewind time and let us try again. All of this that we're doing, we did it before, and it went horribly wrong. This is our chance to do it right. I just stared at him for a long, hard moment. Just to be clear, I said, you have no memory of that previous attempt. No, I guess our memories don't come back with us. It's like he just rewound everything. So everything we experienced and learned would be rewound too. But remember when I said I had deja vu yesterday? I've been getting it over and over. Everything feels like a repeat. That's because it is. Amy said, You mean like he reloaded a save after we all died trying to beat the final boss? No, I said. No, stop. Both of you, just stop. I rubbed my eyes and decided that this was, without a doubt, the worst conversation any human had ever been forced to have immediately after waking. I took a breath. I've been awake for less than 2 minutes. The only reason I haven't gone to take a piss is because my legs don't work yet. I am sitting here, still struggling to process Amy's haunted doll news, and then, in the course of like 3 sentences, you, I pointed to John, fly into the room to announce that time travel is real, and you, I swung my finger to Amy, just casually imply that you actually bought the Matrix Nerd's claim that we're living in a fucking computer simulation. Oh, no, she said. I was just using that as a metaphor. Thank God. But still, she continued, triggering a groan from me, think about it. All these oddities. You guys remembering alternate versions of events. You running into that other version of John in the parking lot of the apartment. Us skipping forward in time, like they're like glitches. Isn't that what the cult says Zarkrax is going to do? Mess up the system until it crashes? Corrupts the OS or whatever? Okay, I said. I realize we made it a rule that no theory can ever be dismissed as too weird, so I'm not saying that. But just for simplicity's sake, let's table the simulation talk for now and focus on John's time travel news. John, when the guy from your wall visited you last night like the fucking ghost of Christmas future, what did he say we need to do? If he granted us a second try to get it right, how did we do it wrong before? He didn't say. I threw up my hands. Oh my God, Amy, let's go. No, listen, said John. I'm not even saying the guy actually came to see me last night. Maybe it was just information leaking through in the form of a dream, something I already knew but my brain couldn't process. And the reason we don't know what we did wrong last time is that the time captain didn't get a chance to tell us before the wall squished him. Did you say time captain? Amy asked, But what good does this information do us then? Even if all this is true, the time reset, the other stuff, we don't know how we messed it up last time. How does it affect what we do next? John thought for a moment. He got out a cigarette, started to light it. Then Joy threw a sofa pillow at him that knocked it from his hands. I hadn't even known she was in the room. Oh, right. Sorry. Okay. I say we just think about what we'd have likely done wrong last time and then do the opposite. I said, so we're going to do the opposite of our first impulse from here on out. Like that Seinfeld episode? Yeah, like that Seinfeld episode, where they're like, what we've been doing hasn't been working, so we're not going to jerk off anymore. Amy said, so we just look at each situation as it comes up and try to see where potential mistakes could have happened last time around. I said, in other words, we have to become the kind of people who carefully consider actions and their consequences in advance. People who aren't just constantly screwing up all the time. If we were capable of doing that, it feels like we would have done it before now. Amy headed toward the door and said to John, well, we're meeting a guy for a haunted doll pickup. Is there any reason to think this is the wrong thing to do? I don't know. Did either of you have dreams last night? We both thought for a moment, and said, almost simultaneously, not that I can remember. I passed a row of roll-up doors to find there were 4 dead birds in front of our storage locker, which was around the normal amount. The owner of the place had complained in the spring, saying it was illegal for us to store dangerous chemicals in there, but we let him examine the contents to confirm it contained no such materials. A good number of the items were clearly cursed, of course, but that's not technically in violation of the lease. Still, he had raised the rent by $10. The dolls were heaped on a set of metal shelves along the back wall, so that they were all in view of the live camera perched in the corner next to the door. To the left and right were piles of other junk we'd collected, mostly items people had mailed to us for evaluation and or disposal. There was an aquarium full of water containing a severed hand that was forever making that sarcastic jerk-off motion. There was a jar of peach jam that could not be opened by any human means. There was a pair of sneakers that supposedly could make anyone extremely bad at basketball. There was the discarded shell of a locust that was 36 inches long. We never saw the live creature. This was shipped to us from someone who included a note that said, keep it, where I'm from, there are plenty more. Oksana the doll was lying in the middle of the floor, I guess where it had ended its supposed walk. If the camera wasn't lying, this would definitely make it the most sellable doll we'd ever owned. Plenty of them were probably cursed in some way, but always in a manner similar to what you'd find in a million listings on eBay. The dolls emanated a sense of dread, or caused nearby plants to die overnight, or talked in a voice that only one person could hear. All stuff that, in an online ad, would come off as just another of the fakes. I picked up Oksana, just a porcelain doll, probably an antique, no creepier than any other. No fishing line was attached. Its floppy legs seemed to have no internal mechanism for walking, no immediate signs of possession or other weirdness. I shook it. Nothing. I tried standing it up to see if it would walk. It just slumped over. You, David? I turned to find a chubby guy in a Hawaiian shirt and baggy shorts. That's me. He shouted, Ricardo Porkfart. I stared. What? That's my username. On your message board? Is that Oksana? I've been on the road since midnight. I felt a cold wind flow through my soul. One of our message board weirdos may now know where we live. Yes, sir. Can't you feel the dark energy emanating from her? Some comments are saying the video was faked. I don't know what to tell you. I hadn't even watched it. Can you make her walk for me? She's not a puppet. She'll walk if she decides to. Can I have a refund if she never does anything? No, but I'll give you the original video clip of her walking. What does that do for me? Well, if you decide she's not worth it, you can use the clip as evidence to sell her to somebody else. In the listing, just say that she was too haunted for you. You'll find somebody willing to pay at least $600, I guarantee it. This doll is cursed. By capitalism. Ricardo took the doll from me, handling it gingerly. He examined it, as if also looking for visible signs of possession. I'll give you $300. This is not a used car dealership. $500 was the price. Nothing has changed between the time you agreed and the time you drove down here. He looked it over again. I guess I just assumed it would feel spooky or something. What I'm looking at right now is just a doll. $500 and I'll throw in a second doll. Or all of them. As many as you can fit in your car. Pick out the most haunted ones. Here. I stood up and grabbed one at random. It had a tag on it that said, "Stinks." I handed it to Ricardo. "Smell it." He sniffed it. "Oh, God. It smells like..." His eyes glazed over. "Like an old person's house. Only worse. Like that and chemicals. Like a hospital. No, that's not right. A hospice." I said, "It smells like your worst childhood memory. Take it home. Let your friends try it. It's the perfect trick to utterly ruin any party." "What do you smell?" "An old gym teacher's cologne." After another 20 minutes of haggling, I got $450 from the guy, and he went home with Oksana, the smelly doll, the block of resin that contained the parasite thing from the 4th of July, and a margarita machine that functions normally aside from making the sound of a crying baby when you're using it. He paid in cash and, I would find out later, did not make it home that night. John pulled his hair into a ponytail and set about making some extra buttery coffee. He checked his phone to see if he'd heard anything from Regina Galvatron. As instructed, he texted her the night before to warn her about the situation. John: "Hey, you'll want to close the door and windows to Gracie's room tonight. Let us know if anything tries to get in." Regina: John: "Also, if Bass is home, see if he has that magic book we confiscated, and if so, take it from him, but also wrap something around it to keep it closed, like some duct tape, or if you have some of those big clamps carpenters use to hold wood together when they are gluing it, but if not, then some kind of bungee cord might work." Regina: John: "Bungee." John: "Is it bungee or bungee?" There had been no follow-up, but John figured that just meant Dalton Galvatron had demanded his wife cease all contact. That meant that they, at the moment, were operating even more in the dark than usual. Joy appeared. John wasn't sure that she didn't literally materialize into rooms from time to time, and said, "Are we recording today? We got about 40 questions." The Relationship Advice podcast relied on listener-submitted questions, and Joy had the task of sorting through them to find the genuine questions among all the stealth boasts. "Hey guys, my model girlfriend always gets jealous when other attractive women openly hit on me in public. What do I do?" "No," replied John. "I have stuff to do. I don't know if you were listening earlier, but we have to get to the bottom of this monster toy situation, and it's gotten complicated. It sounds like we biffed it so hard last time that we had to reboot the whole universe. What time do you think that'll be over? I need to get some sleep before work." "I don't know, Joy. I need to get ready, because we're about to get a surprise visit from the cops." "We are? How do you know?" John froze. "I don't know. But Detective Coiffure is going to be here in about 10 minutes. John could picture it clearly. The sedan pulling up, the man striding toward the gate and trying to decide whether or not to ignore the bizarre warning signs. It was déjà vu in advance. Or at least, I think he is. No, I'm sure he is. "Are you in trouble?" asked Joy, in a tone like she would find it very amusing if he was. "Oh, we definitely are. But what else is new?" Me. I have little triggers for my depression, and it usually doesn't take much. A financial setback, a sad story on the news, Tuesday. But the oddest one is probably missing letters and or burned out bulbs and store signs. I swear that 70% of the business signs in Undisclosed have partially broken signs due to the owners deciding it's just not worth the cost to fix them. It's a small thing, but it feels dystopian, like a civilization slowly going dark out of negligence. So it was even worse than expected when we drove past the Cash Dollar Salon, realizing that the owners were probably sick with worry over what had happened to their weird son, only to be reminded that their sign was missing the R and the second A. Hell, it was even sadder that the place was open at all, as they presumably could not afford to lose an entire day's revenue just because of a life-shattering family tragedy. I briefly wondered if it would be more psychologically scarring to know exactly what had happened to Jonas, or for him to remain missing and for them to forever not know, half wondering if he'd just walk back in the door someday. See? Depression trigger. I dropped Amy off at 1 hour vision, knowing that I'd have to kill at least 2 hours before they were done with her new glasses. It actually said free exam underneath, but that sign was also dark, the X missing in this one, and I assumed that meant they didn't offer that deal anymore. I walked a block over, already breaking out in a sweat on a day that was hotter than a deep-fried tractor tire. I ducked into Sammy's smoke shop, a tiny space with a few shelves of tobacco supplies in addition to liquor, energy drinks, ice cream, adult magazines, knives, a few guns, profane t-shirts, and about 85% of the legal ingredients and equipment you need to cook methamphetamine in your home. I noted that their sign was perfectly intact. I stopped at the front counter, near a little glass warming bin full of the best soft pretzels in America, and probably the world. I don't know how they were made, but they tasted like they were deep fried. They actually had some kind of a crust on them, dusted with cinnamon and sugar. There's nothing spooky or dramatic about them, so I suppose I could just skip this part. But you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to eat a giant pretzel, and you're going to read about it. I grabbed the biggest one and went to the register. There was nobody there, and after waiting for what seemed like enough time, I held the pretzel and a $5 bill up to the security camera in the corner, and then laid the $5 on the counter and weighed it down with an ashtray. I wandered around the store, wanting to eat my pretzel in the air conditioning rather than in my sticky car. I browsed a magazine rack, my eyes skipping across the newest issues of Guns and Ammo, Gun Digest, Shooting Times, American Handgunner, Firearm News, Bullet Parade, and the Gun Street Journal. At the end of the one row of non-gun magazines, something caught my eye. It was a magazine called Jawbreaker, and the cover was a screaming woman's face, her mouth held open by a metal bracket, while a pair of hands were shattering her teeth with a hammer and chisel. I picked it up. The first article was headed with a huge picture of an old man's teeth being destroyed by a metal file held by a pair of hands in bloody leather gloves. The accompanying text was gibberish. Old Whitaker bared ivory on the walk like he was Keen Chimp and thought he had the biggest balls on Nut Mountain, but the rasp had him yelling for mommy in 5 ticks flat. But the JB kept going until the old man was guzzling gravel and pulp, and after 3 days strapped on to big, chunky old Whitaker forgot his name and cried, but it was too late. You knew the risk when you tried to lord the pearlies over the peasants like we don't have balls, and now it's time to chortle the rock salt. It went on like that for 6 pages. I put it back and noticed that next to the magazines was a vertical rack of baseball caps that said, "God stains your blood?" in Comic Sans. Next to them, a whole shelf of jars of what appeared to be human feces bearing commercial labels like Herman Garrison, meatloaf and mashed potatoes, collected unwillingly. In the cooler case on the other side was what I think were shrink-wrapped human fetuses with labels like Russian female 27 weeks and blocks of vaginal cheese. I froze for a moment, blinking, then took a step back. I slowly looked down at the pretzel I was eating. Okay, it was just a pretzel. I took another bite. "We meet at last," said a gravelly voice from behind me. An old man had appeared. He was dressed in a fine suit of unfamiliar fabric and eccentric design, leaning on an elaborate walking stick. I said, "Well, no conversation that began like that has ever gone anywhere good. Who are you?" "You and I have known each other for a long, long time," he said through words filtered by a lifetime of cigarettes. "I'm pretty sure I've never seen you before," though his face did seem familiar. "Are you the head of the Zarkrax cult thing?" He didn't respond, but his smile implied I'd guessed it in one. I said, "Well, that worked out. You're just the man we need to talk to." "Let's go for a ride." "No, thank you. That would violate at least 3 personal rules of mine. How about we—" And just like that, I was in the back seat of a car next to the old man, rolling down streets that were unfamiliar to me. I was still chewing on the same bite of pretzel. "Let me ask you," said the man as we watched the storefronts roll by outside. "When's the last time you shit your pants? While sober, I mean. I took a moment to make sure I'd heard the question right, then said, "Don't remember. Never?"
"Then you're a coward. You're not putting yourself in situations that test your limits. You're never away from the comforts of a restroom, never pushing your physical body or capacity for terror past the breaking point. You know who shits their pants? Marathon runners, soldiers in battle."
We were passing storefronts as we drove. One was called Christian-Owned Baked Goods. Another was a clothing store called Mothers of Modesty. The sidewalk was bustling with pedestrians, and about a third of them wore a tinted plastic mask that covered his or her entire face. Faint graphics flashed across the masks as if the wearers were watching and interacting with a full-screen display from the inside. Where the hell am I? I said, "Uh-huh. So you're the one who recruited Sebastian Galvatron into this thing, right? And gave him that book. All this bullshit with the toys, this ritual, or whatever it is. This is your project?"
"Word for word," said the old man. "The same question as last time, word for word."
"Because we've done this before." He sighed, as if bored. I said, "So John is right, isn't he? This is all a replay. And you're aware of it, somehow."
"This time, rather than waiting for you and your people to jump through the hoops required to contact me, I decided to skip ahead and come see you. Get it over with. I confess I was secretly hoping for a different conversation this time. But I suppose when your adversary is the intellectual equivalent of a hot dog stand, you cannot show up expecting foie gras. Your next question will be something to the effect of, why Sebastian Galveston? What's so special about him?"
That was, in fact, my next question. "We've seen him do tricks nobody his age should be able to do," I said. "Is he some kind of an occult prodigy? Did you scout him out or something?" His only answer was a playful smirk, like you give to a toddler who's asked you where the last Christmas presents are hidden. "Your project," I continued, "this thing you're trying to summon into the world, you need Sebastian's help, don't you? Otherwise, why get him involved?" The old man turned away from me as if he'd mentally moved on to his next appointment.
"Rabbits have evolved to smell the remnants of their relatives in the feces of predators," he said, gazing out of his window. "There is no human equivalent of that emotion, but there will be. How will you feel when you see knots of red hair and the heaps of scat?"
"If you think that just because you're a frail old wizard that I won't beat your ass, you're wrong. If anything, that just makes it funnier."
"What I am doing has already been done. The book is written. I can flip to the ending right now if I so desire. So can you, if you are honest with yourself. You will not stop this. I am not boasting. I am reporting to you the future that already exists."
"Then why bother with this dog and pony show? It kind of feels like you're trying to talk me into backing off. Like maybe you're disturbed by the fact that we exploded your little monster last night. That all of your wizard plans can be undone by a small group consisting mostly of drowsy idiots." He gave me that knowing smirk again and said,
"Just like last time. Word for word."
We were no longer in the car. The old man and I were now in a dim basement that smelled like a sweaty zombie. Water dripped from rusty pipes overhead. A huge man in a leather apron and a metal mask was standing over a table, upon which was an assortment of sinister tools, rusty metal tongs, curved shears, hooks, and dozens of blades of every shape and size. He picked up a tool like an enlarged version of a threadripper and left the room, passing through a heavy metal doorway. A moment later, there was a primal scream from behind that door that descended into wet sputters. I tried to take a step toward that doorway, but found I couldn't move. I got the sense that we weren't actually here, if any of this was even really happening at all. I turned my back to it and took another bite of my pretzel. I said, "It's weird that you think I'm so simple and predictable, and yet also thought this bullshit would scare me. What is this, an alternate dimension where society is falling apart and people get tortured to death? I've had the internet since I was a kid. I used to have torture videos as my signature on message boards. I fall asleep to shit like this."
"Who says I'm trying to scare you?"
"Listen to me," I said, trying to assume a serious tone. I don't care who you are or what powers you have. If some entity from out there, some being from the void, has convinced you to summon it into the universe, then you need our help more than anybody. I don't know what this thing promised you, but you're not going to get it. I don't even mean you will get some ironic version of it, like a wish from a genie. It'll just swallow you up like everything else.
The assumption you made just now sums up the entire difference between someone like you and someone like me. You assume I'm in this for personal gain, because that's the only motive you can imagine for making the kind of sacrifices I've made. I have other goals in mind.
Uh-huh. I know you're dying for me to ask. So what exactly are those... Before I could finish, the old man was gone, and I was back in the smoke shop. I immediately turned to the vertical rack of baseball caps, each of which now said Titty Inspector above the bill. Everything was back to normal. John. A peek at the security monitor revealed nothing at all, because it had apparently fallen off its mount into the grass. But a look out the window revealed Detective Colfier was at the gate, studying the "Shot by Robots" warning sign and, from his expression, considering trying his luck, just as John had pictured it. "Let me guess," John said as he approached the gate. "You're here to give us an award for taking care of your problem last night. Did we get the key to the city? Actually, is that a real thing, or is that just something they do on TV? Let's go inside. It's hotter than a camel's asshole out here." John wasn't crazy about letting law enforcement into his home for a number of reasons, but honestly, if this guy wanted to arrest him, he could pretty much do it any time he felt like it. John's crew was mainly protected by the fact that nobody wanted that hassle. He let the detective into the kitchen, and as soon as he entered, Colfier's eyes went right to the "Do Not Open" cabinet next to the refrigerator. True to his nature, he immediately reached out to open it. John said, "Don't. I'm serious. Not unless you want a mess you'll be cleaning up for a long, long time." Colfier gave John a hard look, but decided not to press the issue and withdrew his hand. John led him into the living room, where he declined John's offer to sit down. He glanced around the room, then spotted the camera in the corner near the ceiling. "Take that down." John did. Then Colfier examined it to make sure it was off. John expected him to ask if they were alone, but he apparently had just assumed that they were. Joy was nowhere in sight and making no noises. John wondered if she hadn't just evaporated completely. That was the thing she could do, if she wanted to avoid a conversation badly enough. Satisfied that he was not being recorded, the detective said, "I'll make this short. I got a visit from Dalton Galveston just now. He seems pretty sure you guys might know something about the missing kid, and the multiple mutilated victims we have on our hands after last night. And he seems even more sure that the department is in on it somehow, or turning a blind eye at the very least." "Yeah, I talked to him. You remember Amy asking you last night about a missing toy? And a spooky book? We still need those. But the big thing is we need access to his son, and that's a problem if Dad is determined to get in our way. What do you think we can do?" "Oh, did you think I came here to help you? Fuck no. See, the problem is Mr. Galveston has money, notoriety, and some prominent friends back where they're from. He says whoever or whatever is doing this is posing a danger to his family, and he's threatening to turn this into a thing if it doesn't get solved post-haste." "Right, that's what Let me finish. Early this morning, Mr. Galveston apparently decided that I needed a little extra motivation. So he picked up the phone and got a private investigator friend to dig up dirt on me online. He turned up some unfortunate incidents from my youth, which in turn could unearth some of the shit I've had to do to try to keep some semblance of peace in this hellhole, much of which was very much not by the book. He threatened to use all this against me if I didn't solve this to his satisfaction and disregard whatever arrangement I have with you people." John said, "So? All the more motivation to solve it." "Ah, but see, it's not going to get solved, is it? These never get solved. The thing about crime is that it only exists if there's enough evidence for a prosecutor to take it to court. That's why 40% of murders don't result in an arrest. It doesn't matter if everybody knows who did it. If there isn't evidence to present at trial, or at least to convince a defense attorney to plead out, then it didn't happen. That means that if, for example, somebody disappears and leaves no evidence or credible witnesses, we technically don't even know if there has been foul play. Maybe they took off to go start a new life, buying their way to South America with a series of trucker blowjobs." "You're losing me." It means somebody needs to solve Dalton Galveston instead. That doesn't help. I mean, said Coiffure, taking a step toward John, if he were to disappear, all of my problems go away. But he would need to truly disappear. See, if he dies and his body turns up, it gets investigated like any other crime. If he just vanishes from the face of the earth, it won't. Are you asking us to kill Bass's father for you? If he continues walking around, I'll have no choice but to pursue the case, and it only leads in one direction. Right here. He pointed to John's feet. And, knowing how reluctant the state's attorney is to prosecute you numbnuts, that may require me to satisfy the doctor's request by other means. So we make Dr. Galveston disappear, or you make us disappear. I cannot control what you infer from my statements. What makes you think we can even do that? The detective just stared. John said, Oh, come on, you're not still buying into that bullshit about Dave, are you? Even if that were true, if he could, I don't know, transform into something inhuman, he'd turn into some kind of big friendly animal, like that bear in The Shining. He turned to head for the door. I've had to get my hands dirty plenty of times, in the course of doing my job here. This time, I'm delegating. Wait, said John, as the detective reached for the door. In your several minutes spent actually trying to solve this case, did you ever look up the other Galvatron kid? The dead one? Yeah. She jumped off a mountain or building or something while on vacation in Mexico. There was a whole anti-bullying crusade at her school the next year. Inspiring shit. There was nothing weird about it? Before or after? Nothing that pointed to Bass or monsters or occult summoning rituals? Nope. And I don't care if there was. Daddy Dalton is a public figure and has a team of people in charge of maintaining his reputation. The second any reporter doubted his story, they immediately got buried under an avalanche of accusations that they were harassing a grieving father. Fortunately, all of that is your problem now. Have a nice day. Me. I was heading back to the Vision place when my phone rang, displaying an unfamiliar number. I normally don't take strange calls. You never know when it's a stalker or, well, anyone else. But this seemed like a day for making an exception. I answered with, Who's this?
Is this David?
Pretty much, yeah.
This is Griff White.
Who?
The bus driver who lost an eye to a demon last night.
Oh yeah. Glad you're doing okay.
I am not. I'm calling you from the hospital. A detective gave me a number.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the monster. We blew it up. There was nothing left of it. I guess we should have let you guys know so you'd rest easier.
You did not.
Yeah, like I said, we should have.
No, I'm saying you did not blow up the creature.
I came to a stop on the sidewalk. What do you mean? Did it come after someone else?
I believe so.
The detective told you that?
No, sir. Nobody knows about it, as far as I can tell.
How do you know?
Because I can still see out of the eye it took. I'd have told you that, too, if you'd asked.
What? You can? How can you still see out of it?
You ask how about that, but not about the existence of the creature itself? The answer is the same. It's some kind of devilry. It doesn't want body parts. It wants to torment us. The other man lost an eye, the old gentleman with his Johnson out. He died. Had a heart attack before he could even get to the hospital. Ranting about seeing through two bodies at once.
Tell me what you saw. Through the other eye, I mean. As much as you can remember.
It was inside your banjo box. Dark. Noises from all around. Then, there was a pair of hands reaching for me, or it. And suddenly, it was in somebody's car, with a bunch of arguing white kids all dressed up in black. One of them pulls out a book, and then somehow I was in a prison. My eye, or, the thing with my eyeball in its belly, went after a prisoner. A skinny bald guy. At that point, I got so worked up and scared, the nurses came in and sedated me. Don't know what happened after that. I'd have preferred to have stayed awake and tried to gather more information for you, but I suppose it's my fault for losing my composure.
Where is it right now? The eye?
Don't know. It's all dark. Hear occasional noises. Nothing I can make out.
But you're sure it's still alive and intact?
Feels like it. Just think it's someplace dark.
The inside of the egg, maybe? God, I hope not. Well, that's not good.
I could have told you all this last night if somebody had thought to ask me.
Yeah, you said that. We'll try to find this thing again, and, if we can recover your eyeball, maybe the doctors can put it back in?
Not sure I want it back, to be honest. Getting old already feels like several of your body parts are haunted. Don't need a bedeviled eyeball rolling around on its own at all hours.
I have to say, you're taking this very well.
I've always known what's up in this town. It's a demonic place. Always has been. There are legends about this land going back since before we had the words. You live here, you know something will eventually come for you. Maybe some kind of beast, or a beast that looks like a man, or a walk-in shadow with eyes like a couple of lit cigars. Sooner or later. My home has got protection, crosses all over, but the devil thought he could get me on the bus. It was meant to happen. It's why I never moved away. I was meant to be here, to have this encounter. When this unclean thing took my left eye, I prayed to the Lord, bind this demon. And he did. Long enough for you to do your work. Or try to anyway. The Lord only offers so much help.
Well, let him know that any additional help would be appreciated, because it's kind of too late for at least 2 people, and by now, probably more.
God does not give us a tunnel. He gives us a shovel. Gotta dig it ourselves. Goodbye.
I hung up, and Amy emerged from the 1-hour vision door, saying, "All done. I made it through that thing where they blow the air into your eyeball without blinking, so I deserve a big knotted churro." Then she saw the look on my face and said, "What?" I'm, kind of not sure where to start.